Oh man, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another video. This is something, all right. This is really something. We're gonna talk about this new ban list that just got dropped today. This was completely kind of like blindsiding. I mean, they didn't even talk about like a watch list like they did with Mecha or SS3 or Flute. They kind of just dropped this on us, and it's really interesting. I mean, the community's been really talking about a lot of different things that they kind of think is unfair in the game, and some of them I agree with, some of them I don't necessarily agree with, some of them I don't totally know how I feel. I mean, I've talked about Storm in countless videos, and while I do think that Storm is very annoying, a lot of decks auto lose to it, although there are plenty of auto loss matchups across the board anyway. I don't know. Like I said before, I'd so much rather play against that than go G to 7, and that's kind of a little bit of a precursor to what we're going to discuss in this video. So I mean, with that being said, I mean, sub to the channel if you're new. I can't even do the Patreon shoutouts right now. I just got to talk about this stuff. Like this has been burning a hole in my mind. So we're going to talk about it. So announcement, January 17th is today's date, right? So additions to the banned limited card list, February 2019. Thank you for your continued support of the Dragon Ball Super card game. Oh, all right. We've released a few cards in the past to help counter Storm decks, which mount a blisteringly fast early game offense backed up by a repeated card draw. That's absolutely true. I mean, they released the good negate cards like Afterimage Technique, Shocking Death Ball, Dimension Magic helps for turtle decks, things like that. They help out, and these cards help diminish Storm's presence in the meta, leading to more deck variety and a healthier overall play environment. However, Storm remains a very difficult archetype to beat if you're not playing the necessary cards to counter it, a fact many players find quite stressful. So that's what they call warping the meta. Storm definitely does warp the meta. I mean, you have like your Storm deck, at least in the current format, pre-Clash of Fates. We do have, Storm is pretty undeniably the best deck. And then you have like, turtle decks, so your mono blue typically, like your Janemba decks and your mono blue Hurdigarn decks or mono blue leader of choice decks, like we've seen win some of the past events. And yeah, I mean, it is true. I mean, it does warp the meta. You do have to play certain cards in your deck. However, I think that like your negates per se, like your Shocking Death Balls, your Afterimage Techniques, your Dimension Magics, you're gonna be playing those anyway. So I don't necessarily know how much it warps the meta. I mean, Vegito is a good card in general. Deadly Defenders are good cards in general. So I'm not necessarily sure how true that is. I mean, it is true to an extent, but anyways. We're also concerned about the negative experience new players will have when they encounter Storm decks for the first time. They may feel like the matchup is hopeless and stop playing the game. I do completely agree with that. 110% agree with that. I mean, you try and introduce a new player at locals, like my locals, for example. We have or had one Storm player. He doesn't really play Storm anymore, but we had one Storm player, and we would try to teach people to play the game, and they were like, "This is stupid. Like this is dumb. Why am I coming over to Yu-Gi-Oh to play this? I mean, he's just doing 17 things in a turn, and I can't really play with him." I do understand that, completely understand that, and I'm not saying Storm should have dodged this ban list by any means, but I'll bring that up in a little bit. So as such, we've decided to add the following cards to the ban limited list. Well, we'll start with Flute and Goten. Flute, I think it's really a non-factor. I'm not really hurt by the Flute ban. I don't really think anyone cares about it too much. It was already at 1, which already made it just like a good card if you drew it, but realistically putting it to 1 really did diminish the power of it. So I don't really care about that. Goten is a really interesting pick. Goten's a very interesting pick, and I don't mean to say it because like I said, Storm should go. Goten's an interesting pick because they just are about to, like, this is Thursday. Tomorrow, Clash of Fates releases, and they're about to release Borgos and Striving to be the Best Son Goku. 2 cards that are supposed to hinder the Storm deck immensely. So you have like your Striving to be the Best Son Goku is supposed to be the hard answer to Goten. Goten can't swing. Goten can't generate those pluses to when you have Striving to be the Best Son Goku on the board. So it's kind of interesting. It either goes to show that one of two things are kind of happening. They're either playtesting, far into the future, which is a great thing for balancing the game, and they're saying that Goku is not going to answer Storm at least from their testing. Maybe that's what they found. Maybe that's why they decided to ban Goten preemptively, or it just means that they're pandering to the community in a weird way. I mean, so either they have the good aspect of it, which means they play tested and Striving to be the Best doesn't work, or they're releasing Striving to be the Best anyway, and they're still just banning Goten just because the community complains about it. And by all means, you have the right to complain about anything you spend your money on. If you don't like the product you're buying, of course, no one's just going to outright quit the game. You want to keep playing the game. You enjoy the game, but you want it to be balanced. No one can fault you for, putting your money where your mouth is, basically, or complaining about what you're buying. But, we a lot of times in the community, we have we butt heads a lot. Ban Goten, ban Bardock, ban Unyielding Spirit Trunks, ban all these different things that hurt Storm. So to an extent, I mean, if this is the route they follow just because the community said so, that can pose a little bit of an issue in the future. And like I said, I mean, they're releasing all these hate cards, and they haven't even given them a chance to test it out. You know, they did give it a chance with the good negates, after image, shocking death ball, dimension magic, storm. You know, it wasn't a tier 0 deck, which is cool, but you know, it still was obviously the best deck of the format. So that didn't work. And then they decided to release these cards in Clash of Fates, which isn't even out yet, and they're still gonna go with this Goten ban, which is really interesting. So, like I said, it means one of two things: they're either testing in advance, or they are just pandering to the community, and the latter can be a little bit troublesome. The prior, if they've tested it and if they know that for some reason down the road, Goten just needs to be banned for some preemptive reason, then I'm all for that. But again, I hope it's the former, not the latter. Now here comes the really interesting thing. Annealing Spirit Trunks to 1. When did people start playing 3-drop Cell in their Storm decks? I must be a garbage content creator, because I must have missed that. No, I'm just kidding. But so I'll read the little bit down here about that. Growing Evil Lifeform Cell isn't used in Storm decks, but we feel that it limits the design space for cards going forward. This is the part, along with the part up top that doesn't make sense. This is the part that does not make sense to me. So Annealing Spirit Trunks is an interesting pick. Limit 1 copy per deck. I mean, at that point, it just becomes a Flute. When you see it, it's really good, but you can't base your deck around a card like Annealing Spirit Trunks unless you're playing like the Mighty Mask. But even then, only getting 1 untapping usage out of it is not going to be super duper, you know, strong to a game plan, in my opinion. So realistically, this card's dead, in my opinion. I mean, and I've always said, in reference to hitting this card, which this is one of the ones I don't know about. This card, if this card's gone, I don't know if aggro can really play the game, which is, it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, to have aggro, you need to be able to, you know, win the game within the first probably 3 turns, maybe 4 turns at any point. But then you have all your crazy mid-range boss monster decks playing in the turn 4 or 5 range. So realistically, aggro in this game needs to win on turn 3, realistically. Turn 2 is a little degenerate. Turn 3 is a little more fair. And if you get over that hump, you play a good defense against the aggro deck, maybe you deserve to win. But I've always said that this card going away might mean that aggro can't really play the game. Like, so Storm clearly dead from this ban list. No Gotens and no untapping Trunkses means you're not making aggressive plays in the early turns. I mean, it's just not happening. So and you're not getting crazy card advantage. But like the deck, like the Mighty Hirudegarn deck, is going to have a really hard time playing the game. I mean, we do still play Mighty Mask to search the Annealing Spirit Trunks, but it's only 1 Trunks. I mean, we make a lot of big untapping plays. I mean, 3 Senzu Bean and 1 searchable untapping Trunks could still potentially be good, but the deck is going to be so much slower now, and it's going to just... I pre-recorded a video yesterday talking about the Atlantic City event and like Clash of Fates format, and of course this ban list is nowhere in the factor of that video because it wasn't out yet. And of course, everything I say in that video is still going to apply to AC, so I'm still going to go up and release that. But you know, I talk about the Mighty Hirudegarn deck being able to, you know, kill turn 3, turn 4 potentially. And with this card at 1, that's going to be very limited. That's going to be a real big problem. And, you know, like I said before, these mid-range boss monster decks, aka Shenron Gogeta, their big play is turn 4, maybe turn 5 if they got unlucky. But turn 4 is still a crazy early turn to, you know, drop your opponent's hand to with 3 random cards and then plow through 9 of their life with most likely critical. So that's going to be a real huge problem in my opinion. And yeah, with this card going away, I don't know if aggro can necessarily play the game. With this card going away, I mean, Mighty Hirudegarn, in my opinion, you know, does fall down a peg. I mean, it's going to be real tough. The only other aggro deck I can see in the foreseeable future is Shenron Veggies. I mean, that deck can still put on a crazy ton of pressure, which I'm happy about because there does need to be something to check this Shenron Gogeta problem that's going to occur in the future. I mean, people weren't sure before if Shenron Gogeta was going to become a problem because, oh, like some people were like, oh, Borgos and Goku don't matter. Storm's going to be great still. Storm's going to be the best deck still. You know, that was a debate that's going back and forth in the community. I think that with this ban limited list, that debate is clear cut over. Storm is not going to hold a candle to Shenron Gogeta. It's going to be just a massacre. I mean, there's no deck that I can think of besides Shenron Veggies that's going to be aggressive enough to check that deck. It's going to be a real problem. So that's my opinion on Annealing Spirit Trunks. I don't like this hit on top of the Goten hit because that means that no other aggro decks can really play. I totally understand that free energy is not okay. It's a big problem. Maybe put this card to 2 or 3 or, you know, just check the aggro cards, you know, make aggro specific archetypes and make sure they're balanced. You know, that's something that Bandai can do. Again, this might just be a hit that panders to the community, and you know, I love the community. You guys are awesome. You guys help me keep doing what I'm doing. but this was not a good hit in my opinion. At least maybe Unyielding Spirit Trunks did need to go, but combined all together, this was not a good list in my opinion. So now we come to Growing Evil Life Form Cell. I'm not going to lie, I'm happy about this. I mean, I've always said Cell Chain is really, really degenerate. I don't like it. It's definitely not, it's kind of broken, not as broken as Gogeta 7, because you do get to keep your 3 cards in your hand of your choice. You can keep 3 cards that will help you, play out of the Cell Chain essentially. You can play defense on your life so that you can pick back cards up off your life, things like that. However, it did get a little bit degenerate, with the play being 3-drop Cell followed up by a turn 4 Super 17 to decrease your hand down to like 1 or 0 in some instances. Honestly, that was a little bit degenerate. Their best play now is something like turn 4 going into Super 17, not the promo, but the super rare, and then turn 5 hard casting the 5-drop Cell and going into Cell Chain. You can still drop someone's hand to 0 potentially, but it's a much later part of the game. It actually kind of turns it into like a Gogeta 7 instance where it's forced to happen later in the game, so it's just going to clean up. And if you get it off, it's just going to clean up. However, you can run removal for the Super 17 because it doesn't have any type of barrier, so that's really, really good. So there's basically Cell Chain very, very hindered in my opinion from this hit, and I'm totally okay with it. The issue comes from the cards that are not on this list, in my opinion. So I have a problem with certain cards not being on this list. One glaring issue, Gogeta 7. You can't look at that card and say, wow, this is a fair and balanced card. You just can't do it. The card just doesn't say that. The card just has 5 keyword skills, 5 of 5 keyword skills. If you don't know, it has 5 keyword skills. It's ridiculous. And you can give it 2 additional keyword skills with Figure of Majesty and your Shenron Leader effect. 7 keyword skills plowing through 9 life. It's a very, very absurd. On top of the 7 keyword skills to wipe your opponent's hand to 3 random cards. Not balanced. Even in a non-Shenron deck, I mean, it's a little bit less annoying. It's a little bit more easily played around because it only swings once, and you can set up your Deadly Defender, you can set up your Barrier Blocker to not lose, you can play at 4 life to make sure that you don't lose to the Gogeta 7 shot. But the issue comes with the Shenron Leader. Now, I did a video talking about the Shenron Leader in comparison to SS3. Of course, it is just as generic as SS3. However, in my opinion, the Shenron Leader is only made broken by the cards we have in the card pool. I'm going to be honest with you guys, if Gogeta 7 wasn't a card, I would have no issue playing against any variant of Shenron. You can talk about Adult Class Vegeta Shenron, you can talk about Kid Buu Shenron, you can talk about Ultra Instinct Shenron. As long as I get to keep my hand and play my game, and I don't have to play to not lose to Gogeta 7, I will play against any Shenron variant out there. It's the Gogeta 7 Shenron variant that's very, very degenerate, and I'm very, very surprised they didn't preemptively hit that. Now, there's a couple of reasons they may have done that. They may not have hit Gogeta 7, to protect their sales, which, unfortunately makes sense. They are a business, they are a company. However, this hurts the player base a lot, and I don't hope they understand that, because that means if they understand that, that means they don't care, which is a real big problem. I hope that they address this so much sooner rather than later, because Gogeta 7 is going to be incredibly degenerate with this format we have coming up with this ban list. The other reason they might not have hit it is because the deck hasn't really been seeing a lot of competitive success, but we all knew that was going to happen. I mean, we all knew that was going to happen when you have the best deck in the format being Storm. If Storm is the best deck in the format, Gogeta, Shenron, and Shenron realistically cannot play the game. That's just a matter of fact. So you had 2 problems, and I've talked about this in prior videos. You had 2 problems. You had the Storm problem, and then you had the Shenron problem, which was being checked by Storm. It was being checked by Storm, and now that Storm's gone, Shenron is going to rise to the top and be a huge, huge issue, particularly the Gogeta 7 variant. I mean, I have no doubt saying that Shenron is going to become the best leader post this ban list. And honestly, I think Bandai did us a disservice by taking away the one thing that did check it really, really well, which is aggro. I mean, Storm, fine, take it away. But Unyielding Spirit Trunks, that's going to make it really hard for other aggro decks to play the game. The only thing I can think of that checks Shenron right now is going to be maybe something like Shenron Veggies, which do have, counters of their own. And then you can have like your Chain Zeno. And Chain Zeno is another thing that's not on this list. I mean, I prefer Chain Attack to get an errata rather than being banned, or Zeno just outright getting banned. But, I mean, that's something I'm iffy on. At some points, Chain Zeno has been a necessary evil. You have these decks like Shenron Gogeta. You have these decks like Cell Chain, and Chain Zeno is more of like a fair reset because you also lose any hand advantage you've made, things like that. It's been considered a necessary evil. But certain formats, it was just the degenerate deck. Like, I think back to ARG Philly format. It was just literally, I played 9 rounds of SS3 red blue, and it was just chain Zeno dot deck, and that can get very, very annoying and frustrating. And that's another frustrating thing for new players. You know, I did all this cool stuff. I built my board, and now it just gets wiped away by an uninteractable thing. I am happy, however, that there is the answer to cold bullets to chain Zeno. So, you know, that isn't necessarily the worst thing on the face of the earth. So I'm okay with that. But Shenron Gogeta is going to be a huge problem coming from this ban list, and I don't know if they just overlooked it, if they didn't want to hit it because it hasn't had any tournament results yet, but I already talked about why that would be, or just to save sales. But saving sales doesn't really make sense either, because preemptively hitting the Goten and the Trunks, it's killing their Clash sales anyway. People were going to buy Clash of Fates to get the Striving to be the best Goku and to get the Borgoses. Realistically, you don't need to buy this product anymore. I mean, it almost kills the product unless you want the archetypes in the set, which the archetypes in the set are very good, and I recommend you go out and buy them. There's no chase card anymore. Realistically, there's no chase Striving to be the best on Goku. There's no chase foil Borgoses, for example. So let's read out the rest of what this says. We want to emphasize that our main reason for adding these cards to the list is to allow for the continued development of interesting cards for players to enjoy, and to focus on attention on new cards and play strategies. I'm all for that. When a new set comes out, I want new decks to come into the ropes. That's amazing. But you guys, I think that from the way this is worded, I think they overlooked the Shenron Gogeta issue, and that's going to be a real big problem. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next month, I hope sooner than that, honestly. But after whatever the first event in February is, you know, it's either going to be like a Shenron Gogeta massacre, or it's going to be like the hard counter, which probably is like Janemba Mill or Shenron Veggies. So, I mean, guys, that's my opinion on the ban list. I mean, let me know what you guys think about it down below. Those are my opinions. I'm totally open to debating. I'm totally open to talking about it. I definitely want to get a podcast on this. We're either going to hold a podcast during the weekend of Atlantic City and get that to you guys as soon as possible, or we're going to do it Monday when we get back. I want to have a lot of big names in the community on for this podcast, talk about the ban list, talk about the future of the game, things like that. And I hope, Bandai, I hope you're listening, because you know, Shenron Gogeta, big problem. So yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and then with that being said, I'll see you next time. Hey, welcome to the end card, and thank you so much for sitting through that, because honestly, I'm just doing this until I make a Digimon trading card game. So if you like Dragon Ball Super for some reason, give it a sub up above, maybe check out some of our other content, and do not forget, Digimon is way better than Pokemon. With that being said, we will see you next time.